What's up, people viewing via YouTube? My name is Pat, otherwise known as RageRover. In today's video, guys, this is my third garage in the mini-series, and this is what I call my classic cruiser garage. Now, what I mean by that is they house all of my classic cruisers along with a few other amenities, classifying as rat rod or shop truck, whatever you might call it. So with that out of the way, guys, let's just get right into it and let's go and take a look in my garage. Okay, the first vehicle we have in my garage is my Class 8 Tornado, and obviously looking at the car, it definitely brings it back to the 50s, and in my opinion this vehicle is based off of that of the 57 Chevy with 58 headlights, hence why there's two on each side of the car, and it's just one really good classic cruiser in my opinion. I made this like a custom cruiser, real simple, nothing over the top, so I went with a stone silver metallic with the gold pearlescent blended in. Kind of looks like something you'd see at like your Autorama or a good old classic custom car shows, and also with the 5-spoke chrome wheels, it just really sets off the car really well, and it's just something that I really like to see in a custom cruiser. Alright, next up is my Vapid Peyote, I believe is how it's pronounced, and it's definitely based off like a 55, 56, basically mid-50s Ford Thunderbird, and I basically just went all original when I kind of built this car up. And one thing I will note, that when you actually look up a 55, 56 Thunderbird with the hard top on there, they usually have the circular portholes on each side of the hard top. This one does not, but and yeah, this is kind of one of the cars you just don't really see in game being customized, so I just went all original on it, chrome wire wheels with the white wall tires. It's just like a good classic restoration, so to speak. And one thing I will notice is, like, whenever I do take it out in a public session, a lot of people will be hating on the color because it's a salmon pink. Well, if you actually look this vehicle up, like by a Google or whatever, the one thing that you will notice is that this color is actually very popular among the classic Thunderbirds. So that's why I went with it. It's different. And it's just classical. Okay, moving right along, we have my Vapid Chino, and this is definitely based off of like a Lincoln Continental of the mid-60s. And the one thing that I did notice though is, I mean, of course, all these vehicles that are in game, they are not exactly modeled completely after the real life counterparts, and that's why I will note that it does look like it's got elements of like Thunderbird in there from the early 70s, maybe mid 70s, but overall it's definitely a Lincoln Continental, but it's a two-door coupe. So, and it's, yes, when I made this car, I ended up taking this thing to Benny's Original Motor Works to get the car completely done. The wheels and the white wall tires are actually slightly different than what you would typically see like on the Peyote here, but it's real simple. And of course the classic Continental is all black on black. I even went with an interior that is basically modeled after an actual Continental, as close to it as possible. The only amenities I did change on it was the column shifter is the classic 50s microphone, and I do have the Grim Reaper sitting on the center of the dash there. But other than that, I just kept it simple and elegant, and that's basically what I came up with when I built the Vapid Chino. Next up is my Class 8 Voodoo, and this car's been around since GTA Vice City, I do believe, and I've always loved this car, especially when they brought it back for Grand Theft Auto 5 in a beater version, I guess you could say. Now, yes, once again, I did take this to Benny's to have it completely done up. And once again, I went all original. However, it is kind of got a little bit of a lowrider theme. If you note the wheels, they're a GM rally wheel, but in a very small, puny version, and that's just something you typically see of a classic lowrider. Now, I just went all original as far as the outside and also the interior. I really kind of did my research when it came to looking at the interiors of these cars, and the dashboard and the seating and also the steering wheel especially, I modeled after, like, I want to say it was a 62 Impala, and I got fairly close on it, I think, as far as also the gauge coloring and stuff like that. So overall, I like this cruiser the way it is, and it's just really simple, really, once again, elegant, and that's really about it. Okay, next up is the Albany Buccaneer. Now what's funny is Albany in the game is supposed to be like a Cadillac knockoff, I guess you could say, but this, I believe, is based off of a mid-60s Buick Riviera, particularly the 65, just because of the stacked headlights. I mean, the grille kind of looks like something you'd find off of like a Pontiac Tempest or a GTO of the same era, but once again I took this to the Lowrider Custom Shop, Benny's to be exact, and had the car all done up just because I wanted to model the interior once again off of a Riviera as close as possible. I mean, the taillights don't really match that of a Riviera, but overall the car is a classic Buick from the 60s. And once again, the interior, I tried to keep it as close to the original real-life counterpart as possible. And that's why I went with the wood grain steering wheel, which is something you'd find on the Rivieras, and also the black seats with the chrome trim, that sort of thing. And yes, I decided to leave the hardtop on this car, and I could have gone with a convertible version, but the one thing about it is originally these cars were never convertibles. They never were. I mean, in some instances, if you looked on the interwebs, you would see a custom 65 Buick Riviera where someone made it a soft top convertible, and it looks really, really cool. But in my opinion, it just looks a lot better with the hardtop back on it. Okay, next up I have my Albany Roosevelt, and yeah, it is aesthetically, I guess, accurate to call this a Cadillac knockoff, just because just by looking at the car, and it's really hard to tell the difference between cars made from the 1900s all the way up to the 30s until you get into the 40s. Some of them just almost look exactly alike, but I narrowed this down to a late 20s Cadillac Town Sedan, just because the overall shape, the length, the wheelbase, pretty close actually. And if you know your history, Al Capone made the Cadillac Town Sedan a classic vehicle from all of his mobster stories that he was involved in and stuff like that. Now, I completely left this unaltered. The only thing I did to this car was the paint, and a lot of Cadillac Town Sedans back then in the 30s or late 20s had a dark green color, and that's just what I left it as. Now, the interior is definitely significantly different than any other vehicle that you typically find. Now, if you notice, like all the muscle cars built in game, all the interiors are pretty much the same with a few minor changes on each model, but this one is definitely different, except for the next vehicle I'll cover here in a second. But believe it or not, I've actually had this Roosevelt not since the latest DLC, Valentine's DLC of this year, 2016, but since 2014, and that's what kind of made it a very rare car for a while until the Valentine's Day Be My Valentine DLC came out. But I just like the uniqueness of this car, and that's why I kind of kept it all original looking as possible, just to be a very good antique classic car to be cruising around in. Okay, next up we got the Albany Frankenstange, or Stange. I'm not sure how people pronounce it, but it's basically built kind of off of the Roosevelt. If you just look closely at like the front of the cab there, and the grille, front fenders, basically minor things like that, but it is definitely a custom hot rod. It is basically influenced by, if anyone really remembers this show, I certainly don't, but my parents do, the Munsters. This vehicle is kind of influenced by the Munster coach. Now, it's inaccurately built like the Munster coach just because where the roof on the cab here is actually covering the front seat, the actual Munster coach covered just the second row seating, and believe it or not, the real life car had third row seating all the way out back. but the shape of the rear fenders was pretty close to what you saw in the TV show, or also the wheels. They're kind of close. I made them look like that. But also too, what particularly sets it off is these intake tubes covering each carburetor, just because of their forward-facing angle, and also too these zoomy headers on each side of the motor. Now, what zoomy headers are is exactly what you see here. It's basically tubes that route themselves down and then straight back up, or just straight out the sides of each side of the car, and that's really about it. But one thing I also noticed is also the engine sound of this car. Now, if you remember the Class A Mamba, if you actually listen to it start up, and also this vehicle start up, it is definitely a notable different idle sound, and it really sounds cool. It sounds like it got a good cam rumble going on, and basically, to anyone that really knows what a cam does, it's basically just allows to open and close valves inside the motor to allow air to come in, exhaust to go out, and by changing that camshaft to something that's high performance, you get this rumble, this distinctive muscle car sound, and that's what this car sounds like. Alright, next up is kind of one of my other favorite classic antique street rods, whatever you want to call it. Basically, we got the Vapid Hot Knife, and I believe it to be modeled after a 32 to 33 Ford 3-window coupe. Now, I really thought that it was really based off of a Model A, just because of the front fenders and the rear fenders, but because it's actually a custom street rod, you can't really tell what it's really based off. I wanted to say it was a early 30s Ford, maybe a Model B, just because on the Model B's the front grille had that slight curvature to it, just like this one does, and I just went with like a typical street rod build. Chrome 5-spoke wheels, a nice two-tone metallic paint job, and of course I wanted people to see the motor with all the chrome all over it and stuff like that. And once again, it's rocking the zoomy headers, and it's got this bug intake on top of what looks like a 671 blower, and just really cool, and just something I like to go tearing the streets up with in game. Alright, now then, moving into the last couple vehicles in my garage, that takes us to my rat rod / shop truck section of the garage, I guess you could say. Now, we have the Bravado Rat Truck, and I thought this vehicle to be based off of like a late 30s or maybe mid 30s Ford pickup, but no, I mean, looking closely at this vehicle versus images on the internet, it kind of looks like that of a early 40s Chevy pickup truck, actually. And I went with a clean rat rod look on this one. I mean, I went with the matte black paint, no shine on there, and went with the classic wheels, painted red with the chrome center caps. And I just like these classic rat rod trucks and cars that you see out there at some car shows and stuff. I once again went with an exposed motor just to show it off. And especially when I went with the exhaust, I went with these, what they call Lakester headers, and Lakester basically means what you see there. That's what they are called. People will call them lake headers or whatnot, but basically they're just tubular pipes that widen out when they get towards the end of the pipe, and they just stick out each side of the vehicle. And I think it's different. I mean, a lot of guys will probably go with like a zoomy type header, or just side pipes, or just something that sticks out the back, but I think it felt appropriate to put it on this vehicle. And also too, I set the suspension down just to a right level, because rat rods are generally lowered, almost slammed all the way to the ground, but I just kind of went simple on it. And overall, it's just one of my favorite pickup trucks in the game. Alright, wrapping things up in this garage, lastly but certainly not least, once again, is my Vapid Slam van. And it's definitely that of a mid-50s Ford F1. Some people will mistakenly call them the F100, but overall it's just a 50s Ford pickup truck. And I went with the shop truck build once again. And what I mean by shop truck is basically how you see the layout of these trucks. Basically simple, nothing done over the top. They're usually lowered, and they sport custom logos on each side of the truck representing a specific type of custom shop or automotive shop, whatever. And I went with my team logo right there, real simple. And I went with the cream with the black classic wheels, and once again, just simple. I mean, the one thing about the Slam Van is when you start it up and take it out for a cruise, you know the engine is definitely sounds like it's monsterly sounding, hence why you got the side pipe on sticking out in front of the rear wheel there. And just a good classic cruiser pickup truck. And it's basically, I built it to be a shop truck, and simple but yet bitchin'. Alrighty guys, that pretty much wraps it up for this garage and my mini series, and this is just the third garage out of 5, so I have yet 2 more to cover, along with other content that I might post up concerning any vehicle in the GT Online. Now, I do want to mention though about this particular garage is, yeah, not all these vehicles are actually classified as a sports classic or cruiser, whatever. I mean, cruiser isn't actually classified in Rockstar's line of vehicles. But for example, like the Albany Buccaneer, I consider it a good classic cruiser, although it is considered a muscle car. Same thing with the Voodoo, and I believe the Chino is also listed as muscle. But overall, I classed them, in my opinion, all as the classic cruisers. And also, of course, I have that slight taste for the restored and all original classics, as well as rat rods, shop trucks. I just love classical stuff like that. Now, yeah, and to a lot of people it seems boring. Yeah, I'm not really into like European exotics, Italian cars, or anything like that. But actually, I do appreciate any type of vehicle. It's just I favor these American-based vehicles. Now, I do also want to mention that I have actually established a new Twitter account, so if you care to catch up on anything that I might be posting on or what the heck I might be doing, it is RageRover 4_2 on the Twitter site. So if you care to drop in and say hello, please do. And other than that, if you guys enjoyed the video, a like rating would be appreciated. And also too, if you have any comments about any of the vehicles here or any future vehicles that you might want to see me cover in maybe another showcase or just covering them in general, please let me know. But other than that, guys, I will see you guys in another video coming up real soon.